Welcome to Murder.
And everything else.
My name is Joy.
And my name is Cheryl. And Joy and I are two very old friends that are going to chit chat about, guess what? Murder and everything else.
Woo!
Hey!
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday, everybody.
That's right. So, depending on when you're listening to this, now you know that we recorded it on Sunday.
Trade secrets.
Hey, a quick reminder, I'm going to jump right into our disclaimers, that this podcast is not for kids. Also, for those of you wondering what that typing sound is during the podcast, it's Cheryl's dogs walking around. Tick, 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 tick. I've
They're
heard
providing
that,
the background noise.
although I will tell you guys that Cheryl is one of the fastest typers that I have ever met.
Aw,
And I always thought, and I'm also a fast typer, and I always
you
thought that
are.
the reason I was a fast typer was because I play the piano, and the piano teacher used to put a cardboard under my chin so I couldn't see my hands. So I would have
Oh,
to read the music and play, having memorized where the keys were. And so when I met you, I was like, she has to be a piano player.
I
Cause
remember you asking that. Yeah,
yeah,
I
and
do
you were like,
remember.
nope. And I was blown away. I was like, wow. Because the other thing Cheryl can do is she doesn't have to look at her hands when she types. She just, but
But
back in the day, we used to have to take typing class.
yes, and I'm telling you, high school typing class free, right? I went to a public school and that thing carried with me through my entire life. That one typing class. The only
Yeah,
thing
I mean,
I wish I knew 10 key. I tried
oh,
practicing.
yeah,
Yeah,
I've
I can't
tried
remember.
too. I will say that for those listeners, that small 7% of 0 to 17-year-olds that are listening to this, I will say that we also had to take a class called home economics, where they taught you stuff like what color wallpaper matched the color carpet and the color drapes. And literally, I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but it's
It
true. And
sounds
also,
sexual.
yeah, that's where they got the does the carpet match the drapes from, right? And then the other thing they would teach us, I remember in my home economics, we had to make a article of clothing that could be worn. And then you also had to make pasta noodles from scratch. And I
Whoa.
remember mine, I mean, when you threw them on the ground, they bounced. They were so disgusting.
Cooked or
And
raw?
cooked. Cooked. They were so gross and they were thick and like had lumps in them. And it's funny because I do love to cook and I consider myself a pretty decent cook,
She is a very good
but
cook, guys.
but I can tell you I had like a real rough start back at the ripe age of 14 while they shove you in a kitchen and tell you not to burn yourself.
Yeah, that could
So,
have traumatized you, but thankfully, you have turned out to be an amazing cook. And I have a question for you. Did you ever wear that article of clothing that you made?
no. So I failed that section
Well,
because
it
I
sounds like you failed the cooking part.
yeah, and apparently the carpets and the drapes, that part, like who thought that the teaching kids what a color wheel was gonna like I mean, honestly, I remember
Enhance
rolling
their
into that
lives.
class, yeah, and thinking, who cares if the carpet matches the drapes?
Little
And
did
as
you
I
know that.
and as I get older, I think, oh well, it matches up.
Little did you know how profound that would be later on in life.
That's right.
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
God.
The last disclaimer I have is that we have some new music coming at you. It'll probably be on last week's episode, which will be released today, which means nothing to the listeners because you have no idea what day it is or what time warp we're in. But anyway, a talented young artist has put together something fun to introduce us and take us out at the end. So let us know what you think. It's got a
Mhm.
little spook, a little beat,
Sass.
a little guitar. I mean, it's got, short of like a scream, it's kind of got everything
It does. And it was created just for us.
just for us with us in mind.
Yep.
Well, that brings us into our highs and lows. You want to take it away?
Of course I do. Okay. I'm going to be talking about Bodhi again. So this is actually a high and a low, also known as a hoe. Um, so So Kevin went to California and took Bodhi and went to visit his sister, and his sister has two dogs. And they've been sending me video and pictures of Bodhi just having a blast, just playing all day
Bodie
long.
gone wild.
Bodhi gone wild, and it was his first threesome because he had her two dogs.
Ew.
And you saw that cute picture of all Bodhi and her dog, Phoebe and Hart. They're all lying on their sides in the kitchen, like they're
It
just,
must have been it must have been after the action because they were all sleeping.
they were all sleeping and they were smoking a cigarette. But okay, so it's a high because he just looks like he's having so much fun, Joy. So cute.
Aw.
But the low is, I told Kevin, I'm like, I'm worried that when he comes home, he's gonna be depressed. Because seriously,
No.
he's gonna come home to Jet, my Jack Russell terrorist, who wants to kill him. So we have to keep him separated. It's gonna be a whole, you know, a whole thing. I'm kind of worried about it. And although Kevin and I have talked about this, Callie and Jet have been with me for 14 years, right? And I have lived in all kinds of places. Joy keeps saying that she has to write my address in pencil now because I've moved so many times. And no matter where I lived, it didn't matter the size. If we go out on vacation, like my sister would come visit, we go do an Airbnb and I take them. Whenever we came home, they were always so happy to be home. So I'm hoping that that's the case with Bodhi because they come home today. And yeah, I'm really concerned because
Yeah, they're
he's
like
having,
toddlers.
yeah.
Toddlers love being home. Um, I remember once we had a German Shepherd that we got when we lived in Portland, Oregon, and his name was Sally, and we took him to puppy training school. And the lady who was teaching the class said, German Shepherds have the IQ of a 5-year-old child. And I remember looking at Gabe and he looked at me and we're like, who
What?
I'm like, who does who did the like
IQ test?
the assessment on that? Because I was like, this dog still licks his bottom, like, I mean, come on. And then I remember Gabe saying, well, if a toddler could lick his bottom, he probably would. But I just feel like, I don't feel like dogs get depressed because sometimes when I have to put Bruno in the crate for 8 hours, he
Mhm.
is just as happy to see me when I get home
Well,
and
yeah,
let
because
him
he
out of the
wants,
crate.
yeah, well, because he's getting out of the crate. Of course
But
he's
I
happy.
but I also remember the same trainer saying that for animals, like for babies, time is not linear. It's like
Mhm.
they don't remember that they were in the crate for 10
Right,
hours
right, right.
versus 1
10
hour.
minutes.
They're
Yeah.
just happy when you come home and you're like, "I'm home."
Okay,
So,
wait a minute. But this, see, now how do we know this? How
I
do
don't
we know
know.
this? Because they're going to be
I
happy as hell when you come home, whether it's 10 minutes or, 8 hours. Of
well,
course, they're
and
going to be happy.
the cool thing is, he's got his butt with him in the crate. So when he gets bored of just laying there, he can lick his butt. And that's like his second favorite activity. So
But I love how we claim that we know all of this, and we don't know. They could be
we
like,
don't.
I was about ready to commit. Uh, I was about ready to kill myself if you didn't come home in the next minute. So we don't know. Anyway, that's
We
my
don't.
my hope. And then my high is that I'm back with my ladies at the senior assisted living place. Big.
Yay!
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna manage money because I can't. There's several of us that work part time, so it's not like she can give me all the hours and screw everybody else. They already have a full schedule there, so they have to figure it out somehow. But I'm telling you, things are chaotic there, and it doesn't bother me because when you're working with people that you really like professionally and personally, you just get it done, and you're just there to support each other no matter how crazy it is. Because I
Yeah.
imagine if I stepped into a job the way it's going now, because there's been some changes there. I If I had stepped into a job where I didn't know anybody and they just hired me, I'd be like, it'd be like the toilet cleaning place. I'd be like 5 days later, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm not coming back. But it's the people, that really make it. So, yeah, so that's my high. It's fantastic. And I told Kevin, I go, I'm never leaving her again. My manager, Shante, never leaving her again. Even if it's just 1 day a week that I work for her when I'm 80. Um, yeah. So that's my high. What about
When you're
you?
80. So I'm gonna start with my low today. Um, and that is that my blow dryer broke this morning. Well, I'm sure it broke before this morning, but I plugged it in and then I went to every bathroom in the house and plugged it in. And then you know how it has those little buttons that you press reset? So I pressed those a bunch of times. And then I was like, well, maybe the breakers are blown, but then that wouldn't make sense because all the lights are on in the house. So I am
I'm
super
surprised.
irritated.
I'm surprised you didn't check the breaker after your washer and
I know,
dryer.
right? I'm so irritated because I love this blow dryer. This is probably a huge tell, but I bought it for like $10 or
What is
less.
it?
It's like this pink. It honestly, it looks like a vibrator. It's so funny looking.
Imagine if you were a
It
vibrator to dry your hair this entire time.
It's right. It really is a vibe. No, it's so nice and compact and cute but it like puts out this great amount of heat. That's probably why it doesn't work anymore is because it was only designed for maybe like I don't know, 30-second usage, but like
Mm.
I don't I I don't like the way my hair looks cuz I had to drip dry it this morning. And that's the other thing is I didn't know because I haven't drip dried my hair because it's growing longer and I've had short hair for a really long time. And now I don't like that like drip dry look. And also, yeah, so now I have to buy a new blow dryer. So I'm aggravated and irritated at that. So that's my low.
Did you try it again? Because I used to have a small little compact. It was a travel size, really cute, and it wouldn't. It would overheat after like a minute.
Yeah, but I
So,
never even got it to work this morning.
oh,
It's
okay,
just it's
it's
like
dead.
dead.
It's dead
Yeah.
in the water.
And it had like these cool attachments that you could put on that popped off and it was just such a cool blow dryer. So anyway, I got to find another one.
Well, can I
Luck
just news? What's that? Breaking news! All blow dryers come with the little attachments.
Oh, they
I'm
do.
fairly certain. I'm fairly confident you can find another one. A
I've
blow dryer.
had short hair for so long. And when your hair's short, you don't have to blow dry it. You just leave it cuz it's short. But
Mm-hmm.
now that my hair's longer, and we live in a humid summertime environment, it just gets like bushy. It just goes foop and it's all like puffed up.
Oh, really? I've never seen your hair like that. Well, that's probably
Yeah,
all
it's
because you blow dried,
it's one
blow
of those
dried it.
things. Yeah,
Blown
it's one
dry.
of those things that happens like when you get older, I think. Your hair just gets all crazy, you
Yeah,
know, getting
it's
back
like
to
the
our
mind.
getting back to our drapes and our curtains. Anyway, um and let's see, I got to tell you my high. I had so many highs this week, so it was really hard to narrow it down.
Oh, wow! You were you
Yeah,
controlling a couple of them?
but we had such a busy week. So busy. Like, just one of those weeks where you're like, you feel like you're running from one thing to the next and hoping that you don't drop all those balls that you're juggling in the air. And our youngest daughter had her school prom last night. So
Oh,
I worked yesterday. I raced home. She got dressed. I ran her to dinner with her friends. She caught a ride to the prom. Then my husband raced back to get her. But before he picked her up after the dance and all the festivities, he and I got to go to our friend's birthday party. They're neighbors that live behind on a street that's behind us. And she had said, if you have time, please stop by the birthday party. There'll be food. Um, our neighbors are Mexicans. They always have like the most amazing food. They had tacos and everything was so delicious. And
mm,
then she said there's going to be a singer. And
mm,
so I didn't really know what to expect. Oh, and also her mother's visiting from Mexico. So it was like even more special. They had lots of
mhm,
family there. And we consider this family like family. We met them shortly after we moved here. um, One of our daughters and their youngest daughter were in school together in the same grade. And so we've seen them, a lot. And they're always so generous, always open their home to us and invite us for meals. But this was so cool. So it was a guy dressed, and anybody who's listening to this who knows the difference between different kinds of Mexican styles of music, there's like, like if it's a mariachi, it's a band, but he had the getup on. So it was like a whole suit, including a holster with like this really elaborate decorative gun, with like I mean, I assuming it was decorative, with like, the mother of pearl handle, with the
mm.
silver chrome. The belt had like all this engraving and name on it and a huge buckle. The pants had giant rhinestones down the side. And then the short, bolero style jacket, like patterned after like the matadors, that was short, and a huge hat. And he was such a great singer. And he just
Mm,
sang and sang and sang, and it was just this vibe. It was like
yeah.
a little cooler than this time of year usually, so we were a little chilly outside, but they had twinkling lights and the smell of this yummy food, and everyone's having a nice evening drink, and he's just belting these like Mexican love songs one after another. And
Oh
then
God.
we were sad because we had to leave early to go pick our kid up, and then we came home. But as I'm laying in bed going to sleep, because they live on the street behind us, we can still hear the music, like, kind of wafting through the trees.
Oh,
We live in
that's
the
so
Yeah,
cool.
we live in the country, so, I mean, it's not like a city street behind us where
Right, right.
you'd be throwing eggs at them because it's so stinking loud.
Yeah, yeah.
But, it's like probably a half a mile, but you can hear, this beautiful music, and it was just so cool. And I thought, wow, this is so neat. It's like it felt like we were in another culture. I mean, we were enveloped in this other culture, but it was just so cool to be there and see this and have this experience and be a part of it.
Celebration. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I can
I
even
loved it.
picture I can picture what you're saying about like the music like being kind of distant,
Mhm.
and how oh that's really cool. That sounds so
Yeah, it was
fun.
really cool, really cool. And then I woke up this morning and I was so inspired, so I made breakfast tacos.
Yum.
Yeah.
Yum. I love Mexican
Yum, yum,
food.
yum. I do
Love
too.
Mexican food.
I think in another life,
You are Mexican.
I must have been a Mexican person. I'm not going
Yeah.
to say Mexican princess because everybody likes to think there's somebody special in another life. I am pretty sure I was just like a random Mexican housewife. But I just feel like there's something there, cuz like I just feel so like at one with this culture and the food and the language. So yeah. So
That's
that's my
cool.
story.
And it's always so
Yeah.
nice having neighbors that you get along with.
Ugh,
Yeah.
girl, don't I know it? I Yeah. Whatever.
Okay,
Anyway,
we're just gonna keep
so
it. We can
we're
keep
gonna
it at that. We're just moving
we're
on.
gonna roll right into our shout outs, you guys. This is so
Excuse me.
exciting.
Oh my
I
gosh.
just have to tell you, last weekend, right after I uploaded our episode, Would You Rather, I happened to just check our data for our podcast and I saw that we had added the Philippines to our list of listeners, which and
Unbelievable.
and I screenshot it and sent it to Cheryl. I was like, "We are so international." But you guys, between last Sunday and this Sunday, we have now added India. So we are I
Global.
texted Cheryl and I was like, "We are Ms. Worldwide.
Miss
We're like the
Worldwide.
pit bull of podcasters."
Yeah. Oh
And
my God.
yeah, that is so exciting. And
Yeah.
also, we are up to a whopping 57 followers on Spotify.
Yeah.
So, shout out to all of our 57 followers and
Yes. Thank
to
you.
our listeners in the Philippines and our listeners in India. You guys are making us feel so international. I can't even describe it.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. Help us get to 100. Help us get to 100,
Woo!
everybody. That's our next
Yeah.
goal. 50 was our
Even
first, and now
yeah,
we're almost
that's
60.
right.
So,
Help
hmm
us just help us get to even 100 listens.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, aren't we? Aren't we?
Well, I mean,
Total?
collectively we are, but
Yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
no one
Episode.
episode has been listened 100 times. I think one is close. The first one is close at 88 listens.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You know why?
So
That's
we're
they were
almost there.
probably people told other people about this very strange podcast where there's lots of pauses, and one of them says they got to give
Right.
medication to their dog. And
That's right.
if people
That's
don't know
right.
what we're talking about, Joy accidentally uploaded one of the unedited versions where there was like I took 5 minutes to go give Jet medication.
It was like a real-time blooper reel.
Exactly. We wanted you to feel like you were right here with us.
That's right. That's right. It's like, come along with Joy and Cheryl for a day and what our glamorous podcasting lives look like behind the scenes.
Yeah. So people probably went, you know what's funny is if someone actually did say, you need to listen to this, and then they went back and it was the edited you uploaded the correct one,
Right.
and they're like, this is not as funny.
Right. This is really dull.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like they overproduced it.
Exactly.
So this
Oh
week
man.
we are going to be covering some housekeeping items. So we're going to be going over our first 15, or is it 14? Is it 14 or 15? I
I
think it's
think
our
14.
first fifth. Is it 14?
I think this one is 15.
No, it's 15 because
Oh,
so this is our 16th, but we're going over our first 15 podcasts and we're going to do a
yeah, yeah.
little bit of updating. We've got a movie review to read,
Oh my God.
and so we're just going to like cover bits and pieces. There have been some updates to some of the cases we've talked about. So strap yourselves in. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. If there's
So our
if there's updates.
That's right. So our first two episodes were about the Idaho murder. So
Hmm.
Cheryl's going to start with those, and we're going to go in order of our episodes. We'll count out the episode numbers, and then we'll say what they were about. And then what we'll do is, give a little update. Some of them won't have any updates, and that's fine. So take it away, Cheryl.
Okay, so the Idaho murders. So the suspect in custody is Brian Koberger. I think everybody knows that. But since the time that we talked about it, they found that Brian's phone has multiple pictures of one of the victims, and so this supports the theory that the murders were um, targeted on one person, and unfortunately, well, unfortunately for that one person, but also for the three that were kind of like collateral damage. In the beginning, it was theorized that it was Kaylee that was the target, but my opinion, and other people are starting to say it now too, it was Maddie, because Kaylee had moved out. Remember that she had only come back to visit and show her friends her car and hang out with them for that weekend. So they were Kaylee and Maddie were killed in Maddie's room. Now, number one, if if Kaylee was the intended target and she was only visiting, how would he know that that's when she would be coming back, right? And let's say he did know she was
Mhm.
coming back. They had her room was still available. It's not like they rented it out to another roommate. So he knew the layout, right? It seemed like he had probably crashed a party or he knew the layout of the house. So if he had gone back for Kaylee, my theory is he knew which bedroom she was in, but they were found in Maddie's room. So I my opinion is that it was Maddie that was the target, because like I said, Kaylee was only visiting. But anyway, so there were multiple pictures of one of the victims found on his phone. He was also found to have followed Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana on social media, but he repeatedly messaged one of them. And again, they're not saying yet, obviously, because gotta wait for the trial. Also,
Um,
yeah,
do you think that's why when the girl came out of her room and he walked past her, that he didn't do anything because he already had kind of been like he had been he had only intended to apprehend probably one of the girls, but then he ended up having to like, not having to, but he ended up like in a situation where there were more people there than he had initially intended. And
yeah,
so he probably just needed to get the hell out of there by the time that girl was in the hallway. And it's like, what are you going to wake up the whole house?
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's truly what I believe. That's my theory, and I think a lot of people's theory, that he went there for Maddie and Kaylee was spending the night. So now he's got two people in that room, right? And then
So
on
do
his
you do you think it was a stalking situation where he was like stalking her?
Yeah, because he had multiple pictures of her. The social media to me is a big red flag, that he followed all of them, but he repeatedly messaged one of them. So what I heard
Did she
was,
message him back?
no, and that's the thing. Like, what I heard was that this she ignored him, and then he kept saying, "What's up? Hi," and he kept pestering her. But I'm sure all the details will come out at the trial. But that's all I know of, is that he repeatedly was like bugging one of them. If at one point she said, so there's some I did see one thing where it said, well, it was a theory that maybe Maddie had brushed him off, like he was continually um, messaging her, and then maybe at one point she did tell him, hey, whatever, right? I'm not interested,
I
or
wonder.
what?
I know that this is, I mean, it's a horrible, horrible situation, and I my heart bleeds for like the parents of these kids, but
Mm.
why wouldn't she block him so that he could no longer message her?
And maybe she did at
Not
one point,
not that it matters, but I
and maybe.
wonder like
Do you know when
uh,
someone's blocked you? Because I don't do social media.
well, I don't know. Oh yeah, I
Okay,
totally know.
so maybe she
I
did
got
that.
blocked by somebody and I couldn't figure out why I could no longer pull them up, and I researched it and it said either they've deactivated their account and they're no longer on this social media platform, or they blocked you and so you can no longer see them. And I
Ooh,
thought, "Oh,
I
that's
see.
good to know."
Oh, well, you're gonna have to tell us about that sometime. Were you stalking someone, Joy?
You know
Um,
what? I will say, and this is the honest to God truth. One, there's so much information out there about people. And like when somebody will say, like, I have a friend who will say, "Oh, I met this person and they seem really interesting." All they have to do sometimes is just give me like basic first name, last name. It can even be nickname. And you can find out so much about someone who they were married to, how many children do they have, where do they live, what jobs they've had. I mean, there's so much information. And
Yeah.
remember, it doesn't even matter. Like sometimes people say, well, I'm only on LinkedIn. There's so much information. You can see the housing prices, people bought and sold their homes for, the addresses of those homes.
Oh yeah.
Remember, those tax records are public information. You can see when people were divorced, when their names changed, when their, divorces were settled, bankruptcies, you can see their arrest records. I mean, running a background check anymore is only for, if people are trying to like hide that information. But then you can even hire companies to basically clean up your profile online. And
Hmm.
there are families that have done this for, people like children who've been arrested or who have arrest records. There are people who have done it, to clean up their reputations. Maybe they don't like, especially in these like revenge porn kind of situations where girls have been exploited and families have had to go out and pay money to clean up, their child's
Hmm.
reputation. So, yeah, you can find out so much information.
Yeah. Well, so I'm thinking that maybe she did block him because that you're saying that you would know, and maybe that pissed him off. There ha
So Mike, I'm just curious because I'm not a, murder aficionado. Do you think that if he had gone to that house and just found the girl that he had been stalking by herself, that it would have gone in this direction? Do you
with
think
more
maybe he
people
would
being.
have, no, like, do you think maybe he would have tried to talk to her? Do you think he was going to try to like sexually assault her? I mean, I don't know. Um, I don't know what goes through someone's mind.
Well, well, I'm not a murderer. I only like follow, so I can't tell you
I
what he was
only
thinking.
I only play one on TV.
Exactly. Well, this is what could have possibly be what he intended. What if he intended to kidnap her? If he could, thinking he wasn't going to run into any of the other people. Um, that could have been, but because the knife could have just been to threaten her, for her to go with him. So there's so many things that
Mhm.
could have happened. But yes, I think that's what I think. I think he was there for Maddie, and Kaylee was visiting that weekend. And just from the pieces that are out there of that Susanna, oh, the college life. I never went to college, so I never lived this life. But apparently, she was watching TikTok at 4 something in the morning after they got home from that party, and then she had
It's
ordered
very
some.
addicting.
Yeah, and then she ordered some fast food delivery from Grubhub at 4 something in the morning. So I think so. The theory is that she was still up, and Brian, on his way out, encountered her, and probably
Mhm.
Ethan, her boyfriend, came out of the room to see what was going on or help or whatever. And so, after all of that, when Dylan comes out of her room, honestly, at that point, what they're saying is he probably was like, someone has got to have heard something by now because I didn't plan to kill three other people. So I better hightail it out of here because the police are on their way. Also, there is the simple, practical fact that he's probably tired because he's encountered these people aren't standing still or lying still, right? They're fight. It's physical, and so he probably was like, I am not going to take on one more person, and got out of there. But um
Mhm.
the other thing that was really, besides having pictures of them, multiple pictures, and following them on social media, one of the victims' ID was found in his possession. Now that to me is
Uh,
like, what the hell are you doing with one of their IDs? Now I
because a
cannot.
lot of times, and this is where I go back to wondering if he had not committed crimes or murders before,
Mhm.
a lot of serial killers are collectors.
Yeah, they'll take a trophy.
Mhm.
Hmm. And so this to me was very telling. Now, I could not, in all the research I was doing, I could not nail down. I've heard it was in his glove compartment in the Elantra. I've heard it was either at his parents' house or in his apartment in a glove, wrapped up in a glove in a shoe, which, that's you're really trying to conceal it. It's not like you accidentally got that ID. The other thing is, this might have come out earlier, but I'm just going to mention it again, that the blood on the knife sheath that was left at the scene was matched to him. Um, Also, while the FBI were surveilling him in Pennsylvania, where his family was, where he went after the murders,
Mhm.
they saw him cleaning his car from top to bottom in the middle of the night. They also saw
Mm.
him through the window of the kitchen placing his personal items into Ziploc bags. They also watched him taking out the trash using gloves and using a neighbor's trash can to dump the items out, like in the wee hours of the morning. And so his preliminary hearing is scheduled for the end of June, and this is when he will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. And it's also when we're going to find out if the prosecutors will seek the death penalty. And that's all
Oh,
I have
interesting.
so far.
That's
Yeah.
so it's so interesting. I yeah, I don't know about I just I don't also I want to know what's going on with the neighbors. Like, you find out a lot about people who live around you and their habits.
When someone is
Um,
killed.
no, even
I'm
just
sorry.
like, even just like oddities, like, um, if you have a neighbor that wears only one color clothing, or you have neighbors that only come out like after dark, and like those are very, very interesting and odd. Like the neighbors,
Details. Yeah.
what are the neighbors doing? Are they like, did they turn the lights off and they're like, the weird neighbor's out cleaning his car. It's 2 a.m. Also, how did they see him placing stuff in Ziploc baggies?
Oh, well, if you're standing, no, because he was in the kitchen, probably with the window, drapes open. And
It's so bizarre though. It's like a very specific thing. It's like, it would be like the neighbor saying, so here's something I love to do. I love to go to Costco and I love to buy fresh fruit, and then I go through and vegetables, and then I go through a process when I get home. And here's the process. And you can ask my kids. They probably, as a result of this, they'll probably just eat pesticide laced fruit for the rest of their lives. But I fill up the tub with I have a tub in the sink with like a water and soapy solution. I dunk all of the fruit in and wash it. Then I drain all the fruit and dry it. And then I either package it up for lunches, or what I do is I put it in the fridge so that anytime someone wants a good, healthy snack, all they have to do is open the fridge and there's strawberries already with the tops off and clean. There's grapes already taken off the stems that are clean and dry. There's berries like blueberries or raspberries. There's melon already cut up into cubes that's already, blah, blah, blah. Because the other thing is we have a compost. So then I take all the other stuff out to the compost and dump it. And pineapple and then also ditto with the vegetables. And that
hmm
way, when I want to cook something, I don't have to go and wash 500, it's already all clean. So if the neighbors
thankfully,
were watching me, they would be like, she spends a really long time cleaning fruits and vegetables.
well, at least your routine for sanitation. I mean, that's a good thing. I wash mine with the Trader Joe's veggie fruit wash. But anyway, yours is
Oh,
not criminal. Your routine is not
right,
criminal.
right. But like it's so specific, the baggies, it's like,
Well, the
huh,
FBI were there. They had one job and one job only, and that was to surveil him and
right.
watch what he was doing. So all
I
of that
still
added
keep
up.
I still keep going back to his comment when he was arrested and he said, "Did they arrest anyone else?"
Yeah. He
That
could have.
is eerie and
Yeah.
very creepy.
Yeah, but he was a what was he, a law student? Man, it was only four
No, he
months. I
was
can't
like
remember.
he was a criminology PhD student, wasn't he?
Yeah, something like that. So he knew, like, right, like that would maybe be the thing to do, and he probably had time to think about it too.
Right.
And what his
Yeah,
plan might
that's
be if he
so
got
interesting.
arrested. Yeah. So, but I just think finding the ID is just, that leans a lot towards his guilt. Why would you have one of their IDs? So.
Yeah. Ugh, creepy.
Yeah. So we'll have to wait till
So
June,
that
which is
takes
not that
care
far
of
away.
Yeah, that's right. So it takes care of episode 1 and 2 for the
Hmm.
Idaho murder updates. Do you have any updates on episode 3 and 4, which was the Casey Anthony episodes?
Well, let's see. According to People magazine, so I wanted to see, was looking for anything on Casey, but the documentary was basically where is she now. But I wanted to see like what people around her were saying. And so I found that according to People magazine, a source that is close to the Anthony family says that George Anthony has now commented on the Peacock documentary Where the Truth Lies. This family source says that he, quote unquote, he fully expected to be thrown under the bus, but didn't expect her to run him over so many times.
Oh.
Oh. And then also the judge was interviewed, and according to the Daily Mail, the judge who presided over Casey Anthony's murder trial says he doesn't believe her most recent claims that her father drowned her daughter to cover up accidentally smothering her with a pillow during an alleged sexual attack. Judge Belvin Perry Jr. said he didn't believe her story back in 2011, and he doesn't believe her most recent claims now. He said Casey Anthony's believability is pretty much zero. And then, yeah, I can't, Joy, I'm telling you, I try to find people that support her and believe her, like you, me, and my friend. Uh, can't find it. And then the director was who signed on to well, so her name's Alexandra Dean, who directed Casey Anthony, Where the Truth Lies. She says she had high hopes that the series would help people understand the Casey Anthony murder case, which Time magazine previously dubbed the social media trial of the century, in a new light. She says, my biggest hope for the series is that it provokes really profound conversations around how people like Casey Anthony are portrayed by the media. She told Variety, I hope it makes people think more critically about where they're getting their information. If it's from an outlet that covers a court case from one side and doesn't want to hear from anyone not on their side, then they don't have the full story. And that's really all I have as an update. I mean, it's not really an update. It's kind of just what, people said after. But I honestly cannot find anything about anyone believing her except
Hmm.
us. So,
Well, I will say that I really appreciate that statement about where people source their news.
mm-hmm,
And it's one of the things, so during the Trump election, when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, I will say that I had this conversation with my husband a lot of times because I would read articles and I was very quick to shout out headlines and things like that. And he would ask, where is that article from? Who
mm-hmm,
wrote it? What is the website? What are the sources that they're citing? And it forced me to really inspect the quality and the type of news that I was absorbing. And it made me very selective. And I actually stopped reading a lot of um, I stopped reading HuffPost. I stopped reading there's a whole list of places that I stopped reading because they were a lot of times opinion pieces and they were not factual.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And and also they were like social media driven. They were, what they call, what do they call it? Oh, viral videos.
Yeah.
God, did I just sound like I was 75 when I said that? But anyway, and now I go to NPR and I listen to NPR, and then I will sometimes do a deep dive on stories that I really like, or news articles, and I also go to the BBC. And what I appreciate about those news sources is the BBC covers a lot of international news that and so does NPR that our local news stations don't cover, like what's happening around the world, you know?
Mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
but also, I don't really want to know about the cat in Old Man Johnson's tree. I don't. And maybe
You
that
got
says
your own
more.
cat. You got your own
Right.
cat to
I
watch.
I got my own cat problems. Maybe that says more about, like, what I think of Old Man Johnson, but the fact is, I'd also like to know, like, what's happening right now in, say, I don't know, France. So, I'm more interested in that.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah.
anywho.
Yeah, you do have to, because isn't Wikipedia like written by anyone? I mean, I don't really know what the sources are for Wikipedia.
Well,
I heard you can go in there and just edit it.
you can. You totally can, but then you have to be careful because if I once thought about, like, um making a Wikipedia for you and then taking and copying everything from IMDb and moving it over.
Did you really? Oh my God.
But then I
Oh
was
my
like, you know what? I'm like, but then everybody can see that I've done this. And do I really want my name on the line? That's the other thing is, and I feel like that separates, like, my generation from younger generations is I don't want that spotlight. Maybe
Yeah,
they do. So
yeah,
maybe that, 30, 13-second video clip is worth, whatever clapback people are going to, like, put out there, but I don't want it. I don't
yeah.
I
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
invested.
Yeah, you can't hide. You can't
Yeah.
hide online, so you can do it anonymously. Plus, I'd figure it out, Joy. I'd figure it out it was you.
Oh no, girl,
Look
I'd tell
behind this.
you. I'd be like, "Look what I did for you." And you'd be like,
You
"Oh
can
my
tell.
god, take
Take
it
it
down. Take
down.
it down."
Oh
All
man.
right. Well, that takes us through episodes 1 to 4. Episode 5 was the type 2 diabetes Ozempic
Hmm.
episode. Um, just uh just a couple of really short little things, nothing too in depth. Um, there has been a lot more prescription of Wegovy for weight loss that's been approved through insurance companies in the US. So if you are interested, reach out to your primary care physician and ask if, or reach out to your insurance company and see if, your insurance company will approve it because they're they're understanding the benefits of using something like Wegovy as opposed to something like bariatric surgery or gastric bypass or gastric sleeve. A lot of times those surgeries, and I don't know if I talked about that as much during the podcast. Those surgeries, a lot of times they're seeing results very quickly because the size of someone's stomach is reduced. So the amount of food that they can eat and that they can digest is restricted instantly. But because the stomach can expand, eventually what happens is people will lose very quickly the weight and then slowly over time, because again, a lot of the reasons why a person was struggling with obesity, those reasons haven't changed. They've just been restricted on how much they can eat at that moment.
Yeah.
But as their stomach expands, they find that they still go back to the foods that caused, the obesity in the first place. And there's a lot of controversy on whether obesity is a lifestyle choice or gluttony or a sin or whether it's an illness or psychologically motivated or a disorder, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a social worker. I don't work in healthcare. I'm not here to say what it is. I'm just saying that um, there are some people who can maintain that weight loss, but I feel like and I don't have any data, but I feel like it's better to, like, for people to learn how to, like, eat to sustain their body instead of just restricting.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I
because
totally
the other
agree.
thing is, uh, if you tell a small child you can't eat that and then you put the M&M right in front of them within reach, and you say you cannot have the M&M, I mean, the kid's going to eat the M&M. And I'm not saying we're toddlers, but
Mm.
human beings don't deal well with a lot of restriction.
No, and
So
the other thing, like I know for me, it could be uh a mental thing, a habitual thing that you're overeating or eating the wrong foods. So just because you're physically cutting your stomach in a half or a third or whatever it is, um, the psychological way you eat is not hasn't changed.
Right.
Maybe if you start seeing the weight come off, it'll switch something in your brain. But I know for me,
Right.
it's I know I eat when I'm not hungry. I mean, I do all the
Right.
wrong things. You're supposed to eat only when you're hungry. I don't do that. I don't do that. You're
Right.
supposed to eat only until you feel satisfied. I definitely don't do that. I don't know what it is about going back for that little extra, after
Mhm.
after you finish what's on your plate, like you go back and get a little bit more. Anyway, that's what I do. And I eat crap. So it's like, yeah, you have to really, it's more than just the physical, like, you know, decreasing your stomach size. It's much more than that. But this Wagova, what it
It's
means?
it's called Wegovy,
Wag-
Wegovy.
Okay, so is this
And
also
it's the same medicine, but and it has the same results, but Wegovy is marketed for weight loss in the US and Ozempic is for treatment of type
diabetes?
2 diabetes.
But I can't, I already forgot what you said. Wagovi, could that also does is that also for diabetes? Diabetes?
Uh,
I say
oh, so
diabetes.
I say diabetes, and everybody makes fun of me
Yeah,
in
because I
my
say
family because
diabetes.
they all say diabetes. But apparently, remember there was like an older actor who I believe has passed on. His name was Wilford Brimley, and he
Yeah,
had like
yeah.
this amazing mustache. And
Yes.
in the latter part of his life, he did infomercials for diabetes. And if you go to YouTube and you search Wilford Brimley diabetes. They've done all these mashups where they take apart the ads and make funny things because he also says diabetes instead of diabetes. And
No. I
and
thought you were going to say he
so
switched back and forth. So one time
no,
he's saying
no.
diabetes and then diabetes.
And so Gabe always makes fun of me. So he always calls me Wilford Brimley whenever I say diabetes. But
Okay,
here's
Wilford.
here's what I think. So my mother's mother was from Missouri, but she called it Missouri.
Missouri. Mm.
And she said diabetes. And so anyone out there who says diabetes, like hit us up. I want to know. She
Well,
also said Hawaii. She also said Miami. And
okay.
she had
Okay.
a
You had me
very
at Missouri.
different yeah, she had a very different dialectical, like, accent. She also spent some of her life in Arkansas. So, maybe this is like a Missouri,
Kansas.
Arkansas thing?
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
When we did the episode, and it was so funny because you're so much smarter than me. So when I was responding and I would say diabetes, I felt really weird. I'm like, is it diabetes? Diabetes? I can't even say it the way you say it. And then I'm like, surely Joy is saying it the correct way, and I'm not, and I'm going to look stupid. But I can't. But the way you're pronouncing it seems like it's the way it's spelled. It's not TEES at the end, right? Diabetes.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I say diabetes. But hey,
Well,
I just
every time I say it in the house, somebody
Wilford
has to repeat it and go, "Diabetes." And I'm like,
diabetes. Wilford.
yeah,
I'm going to call you Wilford whenever you say that.
yeah,
But hey, can I
it's
just say
so
something
funny.
totally
The
off
in the
topic?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I was watching. So while doing the research for the Brian Koberger updates, I came across a clip of Chris Cuomo on CNN. Chris Cuomo now, and he said Moscow, Idaho, several times. Now I know it's tech, technically Moscow. I don't know. Did someone just say one day that's the way you're supposed to pronounce it? But I just want to, in my defense, Chris Cuomo on CNN says Moscow as well.
Well, let me tell you that there is a town near here. First of all, Chris Cuomo, didn't he get fired from CNN? So
Man,
that must have
I
been an
don't
old
know.
clip.
He's
But
back,
anywho, but he probably doesn't know like how it's pronounced because he's from New York. But
but he's
um,
on TV.
right, but nobody told him.
Oh, I
There's
don't
a
know.
town. Listen, there's a town about 30 minutes from here, and it's spelled Mebane. How would you pronounce that?
Mebane.
Mm-hmm.
Mebane.
Yup. Well, guess how
Mebani.
it's pronounced. Guess how it's
Mebane.
pronounced. Mebane.
Mebane. It's like a Brisbane.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pronounced Mebane. And when I moved here, um, I would say me Bane, and people would be like, "Oh, you're not from around here." And I was all, "No, I'm not. How do you know that?" And they're like, "Well, it's pronounced Mebane." I was like, "Oh."
Well, in
So,
Japanese, you would pronounce each syllable, so it would be Mebani.
right.
Well, hey, so I live in Arizona
My
now.
bonnie lies over the ocean. My bonnie lies.
Okay,
I
I'm
got
gonna
to
spell
sing
this.
on the podcast.
Yay! Oh, your dream. Okay, how do you pronounce this? Prescott.
I know this answer because remember my friend Tara, she has family that lives
Okay,
in Prescott. But I
okay.
know it's Prescott instead of Prescott.
I know, but come on, why?
Well, remember when we lived in Oregon, the Willamette River should be pronounced
Willamette.
Willamette
Oh,
because
I
it's
still say.
French.
Oh well,
And
I
I always said, well, and I would
Willamette.
always say Willamette, and then it was Willamette. And um, remember the exit for Cooch Street, and it was spelled couch, and it was
Couch.
pronounced cooch. And I
Oh,
remember
now I
like,
remember that one.
ew, like that's weird. I was like, it's couch. But
Well, you know
anyway,
which one bothers me because I feel like I want to pronounce it the correct way and people aren't pronouncing it the correct way. Is macarons. Macarons. There's only one O and people call it macaroons. And it's
right.
not. Yeah. Anywho, but the Prescott thing, so I wanted to like be rebellious and not say Prescott because it's Scott. I'm sorry. My brother one of my brother's names is Scott. Am I gonna start calling him Skit? Um
Well, you
but
know what drives me bonkers is people I've heard people here it like everybody in California knows how to say jalapenos because it's
Mhm.
or they'll say jalapenos, but they always say
No, I don't say that.
ha with a H, even though it's spelled with a J, and they say enye before the N because there's a little tilde on the top of the N, a little
Uh-huh.
squiggly mark. But I
Uh-huh.
have heard people here say jalapenos,
Oh
and it
no.
drives me
No.
bunkers. I'm like,
Quesadillas?
I know I'm like, it's not a J and it's not a regular N. I'm all,
Yeah.
so
Oh
it
no,
drives
I've
me
never heard
bonkers.
anyone say that. I've
Yeah,
never heard
yeah.
anyone say that. But anywho, okay, we're getting off track. So
Yep.
now I have to go and
Let
look for Wagovi. Wagovi?
Wegovy. Yeah.
Okay. All
Anyway,
right.
I mean, you don't have to. I'm just shouting it out for people who
No,
are
I know.
listening, if they're interested in researching it. I will say it seems to me like the supply chain issue has kind of resolved itself because every time I renew my prescription, it goes through without a problem. So check it out if you're interested. But just remember that um, everybody has a different
Reaction
process
to
when
it.
they're adjusting to a medication.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not a pharmacist or a doctor. I don't even play one on TV. So, like, make sure you talk to your doctor and you get all the information before you jump off that cliff of taking a medication.
Well,
Um,
I would talk to my doctor if I had one. Remember, they
okay.
keep billing. They've
All
either quit
right.
they either
That's right.
quit or they stop taking my insurance. I'm starting to take it personally. But anyway, when I find one,
Right.
I'm going to have to ask them about that.
Yep.
Okay, what's our next
That's
one?
right. All right. The next one is episode 6. It was our top 5 movies.
Yay!
And I actually have a review.
Oh my
So
God, I'm scared. I'm scared. Let me
So
get.
so
I don't drink. Let me
for
get something to drink.
for our regular listeners, when the week after we publish this, or a couple weeks after, I did a shout out for Francoise who actually went to the library and got Little Miss Sunshine and got Harold and Maude and watched both films. And she had seen Little Miss Sunshine before, I believe, but she had not seen Harold and Maude. So they watched it and she sent me a little review, which
Well,
I'm going to
for
read.
people who did not listen to that episode, you want to give them a little synopsis I'll let you do it.
Well, the the review has a little synopsis,
Oh,
but
okay,
it's
go for it. Take it
so
away.
I don't wanna give it away. Anyway,
Okay.
this is the review.
Oh God.
Thank you, Francoise. This is the story of a young man, Harold, who's obsessed with death and whose many suicide attempts are not even bothering his mother anymore. When Harold meets Maud, an eccentric 80-year-old lady during his favorite pastime, going to funerals, he finds himself questioning the real sense of life and finally enjoying the company of another human being. While Harold tries to communicate with death, Maud communicates with life, and through their many encounters and adventures, Harold will learn how to love himself while exploring new feelings with Maud. I found this movie quite poetic, but also quite outdated. The story between Harold and Maud seems plausible,
Well, it
though,
came
and
out in the 70s, people. Okay, go ahead.
right. Seems plausible, though, and pretty ahead of its time for a 1971 movie. Despite the
Mm.
age gap, the two characters are well played and the situation's quite funny. I wish I could drive like Maud, played by Ruth Gordon, in my 80s. Trick police officers, borrow cars, plant trees, and collect art, and most of all, catch the eye of a young man. Just
Oh,
hopefully just hopefully a better looking young man than Harold, played by Bud Cort. Remember how I said he was like the most like unattractive, like
yeah, but
dude?
he
Ugh.
was so good playing that part. Oh my God.
Sh-
Oh, is that the
She
end?
continues, I
Okay.
would not put this movie in my top 10, nor, wait, nor my top 100. And I am not sure why it got the cult classic label, but I am glad I watched it after listening to the Murder and Everything Else podcast by Cheryl and Joy. Woo!
Oh, okay, how old is Francoise? Francois.
Francoise,
Francoise.
Francoise. Um, if
Okay, wait,
you're
no, you don't
if
have to
you're
tell her
wait,
age.
I just have to say this. If you're French and you're a boy and then your name is Francois. If you're French and you're a girl, your name is Françoise.
Oh,
That's
I
what
thought it was the
Françoise told me
opposite.
many years ago. I do listen to things people say, even though my ADHD is pretty
Sometimes,
bad.
sometimes. Okay, you
Um,
don't have to tell me how old. You
so
may not want
she
her
is
age.
no, no. I'm gonna say she's in Gabe's age category.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I think she's actually
Not super.
exactly the same age as Gabe.
Oh,
So I will say this. When I met my husband, I made him watch all my favorite movies. And those
uh-huh.
are included the ones on my list, but he'd seen like, you know, he'd seen like The Princess Bride before. But I made him watch like The Sound of Music, but I also made him watch Dirty Dancing, which he'd never seen. I made him watch all of the Audrey Hepburns, the Roman Holiday and
Pride
Sabrina
and
and
Prejudice. I know that's
I've
not a
made him watch
movie.
all the Pride and Prejudices and all of the BBC, like, period piece shows, A Room with a View, all of them. And I can tell you that I never made him watch Harold and Maude. And I told him the other day, I said, because remember, this was one of your favorite films. I said, maybe we should sit down and watch that so that you can experience it. And he's like, oh God. So anyway,
But hey,
I I don't
that's go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I think that is a very fair review. I thought it was going to be
Yeah.
scathing.
It's
Um,
no, it's funny. It's
it's a
funny.
very fair
I
review.
love that she said it's not in her top 10 nor her top
100.
100.
Well, I beg to differ, and I think that I could find a group out there that are like-minded. And I think actually, from your description, it may actually, uh, make people want to see it. I mean, from her review. Yeah, of course it's dated. It's from the 70s, and it's cult because it is odd, and I'm sorry, but Ruth Gordon is the incomparable Ruth Gordon. No one else could have played that part. No one. She was such a gem. um but it to me, it is the age difference has everything to do with it, because he well, this is where your age doesn't matter theory can you can use it now, Joy, without me telling you to shut up. Um,
Mhm.
because he finds in her what he can't find in anyone his age. So I just find that really interesting.
Someone who's
Anywho,
closer to a funeral?
Well, that's, it's the whole funeral thing. So, anyway, well, thank you, Francoise. That was very, very interesting and good. And thank you for taking the time to write a review.
Yep. And that
I
takes us
appreciate
to
that.
episode number 7. Robert won. Do you have any updates?
I do not. My notes say can't find any updates or reaction from the friends.
All right.
So yeah, I looked at it, which is not a surprise because they are, trying to live their lives without this repeatedly coming up. But I wish I could be a
Right.
fly on the wall in their lives because surely neighbors or clients or friends, coworkers have said, okay, there was this documentary that just came up. Is that you? Are you Joe Price? You Victor
Mhm.
Saborski? I would love to be like in their circle and hear what friends have had to say, but nothing in the media. I'm sure, I'm 1,000% sure they were asked for interviews or feedback, and they have declined any interviews. I'm positive. Oh, I think it even said that. It said that in the documentary. Yeah. So sorry, I have
Interesting.
nothing.
All right. Episode 8 was on set shooting the Rust film, and I bet you have an update for that.
I do, and I know that you don't agree. So New Mexico prosecutors have decided to drop the involuntary manslaughter charges against Alec Baldwin. Um, and it's possible, then it says it's possible they could decide to file new charges against Alec. I don't know how that works. Like, you drop it, you bring it back. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, all I know is they dropped it. And I know Joy doesn't agree with it, but if you listen to our episode, he is real hot under the collar about that one because the freaking AD, who is the one that took the gun from the armorer and handed it to Alec, didn't check it, or they did some, I don't know what they did, but it was negligent. And he was able to get a plea deal and just probation. And I thought he was much more responsible than Alex. So, anyway, I'm glad. I'm glad. Okay, go ahead. Rip it apart. Go
Well,
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
am I am glad they dropped those charges, but I think he should have been charged with some kind of negligence. Or, he's still like his name is still attached to this film. He was holding the gun when he pulled the trigger. And also, I believe it was this last week, somebody reached out to me and a friend and texted and said a link that the movie Rust has resumed filming.
Yes.
And
Oh, yes. That's right. I forgot about that.
I just kind of
Sick.
felt sick to my stomach. I would have
Hmm.
hoped that they would have scrapped this project. I understand that a lot of money and time goes into making movies, but I feel like,
It's in
kind
poor
of in the
taste.
vein of that whole Brandon Lee,
Yeah.
film, that it's been tainted, and um in the memory of Helena Hutchins, and on behalf of her family, that they would have decided the right thing to do was to just shelve this project, and it to be, forever a cautionary tale on, oversight on these film sets, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And just all the, like, I learned so much more about movie making. So and indie films in the process of doing this podcast. But it is what it is, and I guess we'll see what happens. I think people will want to see it because it now has so much
Salacious now.
attached to it.
Hmm.
So,
It's going to be, and I hope it doesn't happen, but like the Crow, you said the actor that replaced him, something happened, right? He got sick, or no, someone else on the set got sick or hurt or something.
someone else
And
on the set died.
oh, so I don't, knock on wood, I don't want anything to happen on the rest of the filming, but can you imagine if this project is
Yeah,
just cursed and something happens?
yeah.
Anywho, hopefully not. Yeah, I agree. I think it's in poor taste to continue it. Although I guess the husband was doing, was for completing it in honor of her. I don't know. Personally, I'd be like, let's wrap this up because we're just asking for trouble. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right. Well, that takes us to number 9, dating funnies. And
Well,
I will say that dating funnies, number 9 and number 7, Robert Wan, hold. Oh, actually, you know what? No, I take it back. I was gonna say I thought they were the least listened to podcast, but no. We have another one that I'm gonna shout out when we get there. But I don't have any updates for dating funnies.
yeah, neither do I. Because we're not dating anymore, and we talked about all of our dating funnies. Except,
Right.
I just have to say that Jason Mimosa
Ah,
Jason Momoa, wherever you are, I just want you to know that you are always in Joy's thoughts. Whenever
that's right.
anything comes up about dating or a hottie or this or that, it's Jason Momoa all the way,
It's
or Jason
either
Momoa.
Jason Momoa or Idris Elba. You guys know,
No,
you
you
know.
hardly talk about him. It's Jason all the way. Although Idris, yes, yes, yes. Anyway,
That's
no
right. I
updates there.
just said this morning, I said, you know where we need to go? We need to go to Hawaii.
Does
And it's because I need to find out where Jason Momoa is.
he
Or
live in
at least
Hawaii?
where he's from. Because there's got to be other people wandering around that town that look just like him.
Oh yes. Hmm.
Um, all right, so that takes us to episode number 10, the Sarah Lawrence cult episode. I don't have any updates about the that cult or the Nexium cult, but I will say I got a text from Gabe's cousin Carson
Mm,
who said that that was so interesting and it was right up her alley. She loves cults and information about cults and documentaries on cults. And we spent a good portion of time talking about um, shows that she could watch that were so thought provoking and interesting about cults. And so I'm gonna probably do we'll do an episode on another cult just because I find it so fascinating as well. I haven't decided which one yet, but stay tuned for that.
okay.
I love Cheryl and I love when you guys text us or reach out and just, tell us, hey, I listened to this. I loved it. It was so thought provoking, et cetera, et cetera. It's so much fun. It's such a highlight. I don't
It
care if it's
is.
one a day or one a month. I mean, we just love that people are listening and that they hit us up afterwards.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
The next episode was number 11, Amber Alerts. Any updates on that?
No, there's no updates. I just wanted to give some statistics, which I actually already said, but I'm just going to say it again. As of according to the Office of Justice Programs, as of January 2nd, 2023, 1,127 children were successfully recovered through the Amber Alert system. There are 82 Amber Alert plans throughout the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's came out of
Yeah,
tragedy, but and I hope they find her killer.
that's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
So that takes us to episode number 12, online gaming, with our first guest. That was Heidi. And I will say that this episode holds the distinction of being the episode that has been listened to the least.
Aw. Well,
Sorry,
I was like
Heidi.
all gearing up, and then
Sorry, Heidi.
oh Heidi.
But I will say this, and I thought it was interesting. I feel like people of a certain age probably learned a lot about online gaming. I am an avid view watcher. I watch it. I just watch highlights. I generally never watch their guest. I generally just watch the witty repartee between the five hosts on the panel beforehand and the news stories that they cover. And that's primarily because for those of you who listen to the um, for those of you who listen to the Top 5 Movie podcast, I am a huge Whoopi Goldberg fan since her days, on In The
Ghost.
Color Purple,
Oh,
Ghost. I just love her. So that's Sister Act, that's why I watch The View, and I've watched The View for many years. But anyway, they talked about they spend a lot of time talking about political issues, and they've been talking a lot recently about gun violence and gun deaths and shootings, mass shootings. And they mentioned this week uh, video games and violent video game
oh,
players.
oh.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I thought it was so interesting because it was one of the questions that we asked Heidi. Do you think that playing these active shooter games or first person shooter games has contributed to the increase in active shooters and shooting deaths? And she said no, she didn't. So I just thought it was really interesting. They didn't provide any data when they brought it up, and they didn't provide any like concrete evidence that shows that playing these games is linked to these gun deaths. But I just thought it very interesting because it is a narrative amongst people who probably, I mean, I don't think any of those hosts are video gamers, and I don't think they play video games actively, but it is a narrative amongst people of a certain age. A lot of times they tend to be parent age or older. And so it's a demographic that thinks that these games and people who play these games, somehow it enables them to be more violent or prone to violence.
Mm.
So I just found, and it sparked my interest again that she had no data to back up her claims, but she did include this online gaming as a source that, for, that kids have. And again, remember, um the there is a statistic that it jumps out. It's like, young white males that tend to be, predominantly, overwhelming majority of shooters.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, did any of them play violent video games? Probably, because again, they're young white males. So, it's
Well,
just it
I
felt very easy for her to throw that in there, but I was struck by her lack of data.
yeah. Well,
And
probably just her opinion. I give you
mhm.
my opinion?
Yeah.
Because I didn't say anything when you asked Heidi, but I don't think that it's directly related. Um, but I do think if you have a propensity for violence, it's going to. What I think one of my concerns is, and this is from somebody who loves violent movies, but I do think it desensitizes you when you're watching it as entertainment all the time, constantly. People shoot, shooting, and the way it's portrayed, it's kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of cool the way they do, make it seem in movies. Like I love John Wick. My sister and I love the series of John
Oh,
Wick, but it's
yeah.
very, very violent and gun heavy. And same with games, right? So you're playing, you're shooting people or things or whatever for fun. So I do think, I am not a psychologist, but I feel like with my amateur opinion that it's got to play something, it's got to influence your young mind somehow when it's
Mm.
just entertainment. I think it does desensitize you in some way. That's
That's
my
interesting.
opinion.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting. Again, I I'm not a I used to try to play, I think it was GoldenEye. It was a James Bond game. Uh the character was fashioned after Pierce Brosnan from the
mhm,
movie,
mhm,
and I want to say it was on like Sega, the original Sega. Like,
mhm,
and this was like in the early 90s maybe. So of course the graphics, at the time we thought the graphics were like amazing. But now when you look at them, it's like, whoa, what's happening? It's like
mm,
Minecraft. Everything's very boxy and pixelated.
mhm.
But I liked running around and picking up things, but the actual like shooting part was like, whatever. I like The Sims because, it's like if you don't bathe them, then the flies come and they circle around your head. And, then you can go in the kitchen and like, start a kitchen fire and burn the house down. Like, I liked that game. It seemed so much less
Violent, although
scary.
you did
Yeah.
just talk about burning the house down. Well, back in my
Right.
day, Pac-Man and Galaga or whatever. Pac-Man and what was the other one? Pac-Man and
Centipede.
Asteroids or something.
Asteroids.
That's probably the kind of games we need to go back to. I don't know when it started turning into shooting and killing people. That is kind of
Yeah, but you're shooting an
disturbing.
asteroid. You're shooting the asteroids.
Yeah, but come on. And little Pac-Men are eating Pac-Man, but it's not. There's
Oh,
no blood
girl,
and guts
those
and
those
guns. There's
pac
no guns.
those Pac-Man games are very anxiety producing.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's another episode. Stay
Mm.
tuned for that.
All right. Well, that takes us up to episode 13, the Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy. Any
No
updates?
updates. No, there's no updates because this happened a while ago, and I'm actually glad. I'm actually really glad that she is just living her life now. There's no articles on her. She stayed out of the public eye since her release in January of 2020, and it's possible she's living with her family in Plainville. And she has yet to publicly address the Hulu series, which she shouldn't. She should just go live her life.
Yeah,
She had enough
I
shit
agree.
happen to her because I don't
I
know how I
agree.
feel about that. I did not agree with that. So go live your life, Michelle. And I hope no one bothers her for any more interviews and all of that jazz.
All
Yeah.
right. And that takes us to episode 14, Would You Rather? And actually, this is one of my favorite episodes that we've
I
done.
know.
And I know you guys probably think that we're doing this or flying by the seat of our pants, but we actually have an outline that we follow. So that's pretty exciting that we put some thought and care and planning into this. But it says Joy is going to update this episode, but I literally
Okay.
have no idea what I'm going to say. So,
Oh my God, Joy. You faked me out, Joy, because I'm reading the outline and it says episode number 14. Would you rather updates? Joy, update. I'm like, I can't wait to hear this. And you have nothing? Well, we
nothing,
could we could think of
nothing.
another would you rather we could think of another would you rather question because that's kind of disappointing. I
I
thought you
know,
had an
right?
update.
I don't.
Did you want to change our answer on any of the
Right.
questions we
No,
had?
I mean, I think the only thing I was gonna say is it's one of my favorite episodes that we put together. It was so fun to
It
do.
was
So
so
if you
fun.
guys have listened through all of the murder, you need to head over to Would You Rather and listen to it. It's fun
For some light
and
entertainment
exactly.
and thought
And it
provoking.
also and thought provoking.
Yeah,
But
a
anyway,
conversation
that's right. That takes us to our 15th episode,
which
which
we
was
can't
men
talk about.
behaving oh, oh. Right, because we haven't released it yet.
We're in a time warp.
OMG. So this genius
So
moment brought to you by Murder and Everything Else by Joy Frickin' Genius Big Brain.
oh
Wow.
goodness. Well, that was fun though. Touching, I think we should do this every once in a while. And then if
I
you guys
know.
have comments for us, or like Francoise had a review, we will read it
I
during
know. And
these
you
housekeeping. Yeah,
that's right. You'll get famous on Podcastville or
yeah.
Podcast Land.
I would really like the half a person in the Philippines and India. Oh, and Canada, right?
Canada
To
and Ireland. Don't forget
oh God,
Ireland.
what? This is so
Yeah.
exciting. Can you guys like just give us like a little blurb how you found us,
I
what you
know that will be
think?
so exciting. And
That would be
also the other
so
thing I
fun.
forgot to say was since we've added ads to our podcast, we have made 96 cents.
Oh my God.
Almost a
Retirement,
dollar.
here I come.
I almost a dollar. That is so freaking exciting.
It
I
is
can't even tell you. Oh, and by the way, also, um, 99% of our listeners come from the United States. So the remainder of our listeners from Ireland, Canada, Philippines, and India make
make
up
up
that 1%.
1%.
So I am really, really curious Like, is it like, did they listen to 3 words, 6 words? Are they listening just to the ad and then they're all next? Like, did they hover their finger over the podcast and then swipe to another one really quickly? Like, what is the tracking process by which those countries are somehow exposed to our podcast? Anyway,
Well, and I hate to burst your bubble or mine, but it could be by accident because when I'm watching YouTube and the recommended stuff or things that are similar to what you're watching come up on the right side, I've accidentally clicked on one of those. So I
yeah,
hope that's not the case. Please, please, people from other countries, please, our overseas peeps, please reach out and just let us know. Let us
yeah.
know if it was an accident. Let us
You
know what it.
know,
We clicked on it and we heard, we welcome to murder and everything else, and then you clicked right out of it.
right.
Whatever the
Yeah,
case may
let
be.
us know. And also, we don't know yet if we're going to be back next week with more murder or something else,
Good.
but
Stay
how
tuned.
exciting that you can find out next week.
Hmm.
But even though we didn't cover murder today, you know what's a crime?
What's that, Joy?
That we are out of time.
That's right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and don't complicate your day. Bye.
Bye.